Hello, I'm Steve Goldman, and I wanted to thank the Winter Park Voice, its editor, Ann Mooney, its staff, and all the volunteers for creating this great event. And before I introduced Ann, I wanted to just tell you about something I think is interesting. Every so often, my friend and neighbor Pete Weldon and I meet at Starbucks, and we try to find something we can agree on. And one thing Pete always says to me is, gee, you know, I think the Winter Park Voice should be more objective. And I can't understand, Pete and I are totally objective about everything. But somehow we end up disagreeing on a lot of things. And so how is that possible? Well, I think the answer is that there is no such thing as totally objective. There's lots of room for honest men and women to disagree. And that's what this is all about. But Pete and I, although we disagree a lot, we respect each other's intellectual capabilities. And that's the spirit that I think we should all have here. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the illustrious editor of the Winter Park Voice, Ann Mooney.
And I will tell you, a crowd like this makes me proud to be a citizen of Winter Park. It really does. Thank you for being here. Your moderator tonight is Michelle Levy, who is co-president of the Orange County League of Women Voters. Michelle believes all citizens have an obligation to participate in their government by doing at least two things. First, you gotta vote. You don't vote, you don't get to complain about the results. The other thing is speak out on issues that are important to you. Michelle exemplifies the words of the founder of the League of Women Voters, Carrie Chapman Catt, who said, "To the wrongs that need resistance, to the right that needs assistance, to the future in the distance, give yourselves. And I give you Michelle Levy."
Thank you, Ann. That was a lovely introduction. A little bit about the League of Women Voters. We're an organization that in less than 5 years will be celebrating our centennial. But our battle for suffrage began in Seneca Falls, New York in 1848, when only white men who owned property were eligible to vote. We still are fighting the battle for universal suffrage for all eligible voters, and part of that battle involves contributing to informing the public about the candidates who are running for office on the state and local level. The League is committed to educating citizens on laws and policies that impact our community at the local level. We are nonpartisan in that we never support or oppose any candidate, but we do take positions on issues. As a moderator of this debate, let me be clear that I do not live or vote in Winter Park, and I am completely impartial on the outcome and the issues. This debate is being sponsored by the Winter Park Voice, and all the questions come from their editorial board and their readers. We are using the League of Women Voters format for this debate. The candidates will start speaking in alphabetical order, with the two candidates for mayor going first and the city commission candidates going last. So the order for the introductions will be Stephen Leary, Cynthia McKinnon, Gary Brewer, and Greg Seidel. There will be a 2-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement for each candidate. There will be 3 questions for each candidate, followed by 3 questions from the readers of the Voice. Each candidate will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer these questions. Any questions requiring rebuttals will be 1 minute, and our timekeeper will be Louise Weena. Louise, just raise your hand. She's right up here, and please keep an eye on her. She's got signs, and when the sign says stop, please stop.
Can you hold up the signs, please?
So, yes, that's 30 seconds, right?
No, we're fine.
And then the red one is the stop sign.
Just bring that up slow.
So we will begin with our opening statements. Mr. Leary, you will go first.
Thank you all very much for being here this evening. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Steve Leary. I've been a city commissioner in Winter Park for 4 years now. I've been the vice mayor for 3 of those years, as selected by the rest of the commission. I want to thank everyone for being here, as I said, but I also want to thank my wife, who couldn't be here because she's home taking care of our 9-year-old triplets. We came down a few years back and visited my brother, who's been a longtime resident of Winter Park, and we decided this is where we wanted to start our family and raise our family. So we moved down here, and I joined my brother's business. We have a property management business here in Winter Park. I also have a business called Flange Skillets International, and we make gasket positioning devices for the oil and gas pipeline sector. So I'm a small businessman. I operate our businesses right out of here in Winter Park. I have 26 employees. Quickly to talk about the city in the past 4 years and what we've done. I said a couple years ago I was going to focus on a few things. One was financial. I think I know the city, is in tremendous financial shape. Best financial shape this city's ever been in. We have $12.3 million in the bank. We have not raised your taxes in 6 years. We have 28% of our general fund in reserve. We've done a great job. I also said that I was going to worry about some improvements. We have the first urban forestry management plan ever in the city of Winter Park. The trees are incredibly important to this city. We are taking care of them like never before. Secondly, parks. Parks are always important, especially as a father of young children who utilize every park in this city. I said we're going to take care of the parks. Last year we were a Gold Award finalist across the entire nation for our parks. Very proud of that. And our corridors. I said we're going to take care of our corridors. People told me you're crazy trying to fix Fairbanks. I promise you in a couple of years you will be proud to tell people to get off of Fairbanks, and it's because of the work we've done over the past couple of years. Lastly, development. Right place, right time. We need development in the city of Winter Park to offset the tax burden on the citizens of Winter Park. There's a right place for it, and I'm going to tell you too tonight, we're going to talk about exactly what it is, and I'm going to talk to you about the work that we've done with some of the property owners to make this city better and make every project better. Thank you all very much. I look forward to a good evening.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. This is a wonderful crowd. And thank you also to the League of Women Voters. Let me start by answering the question that everybody always seems to want to know the answer to first. Why am I running? I'm running because I think you deserve a city government that guards your tax dollars and spends and invests in ways that reflect your priorities and in ways that protect the value of probably our most significant asset, our home and our residential neighborhoods. I'm running because you also deserve a city government that guards and protects the special place that we live in. We have so many assets that for 125 years we've cared for and enhanced with our lakes, our parks, our beautiful brick streets and residential neighborhoods, and also the unique places that we have here. Our golf course, our Park Avenue, our Central Park, our library. All of those things make our city such a special and unique place. I'm also running because you deserve a government that's working hard to implement a vision that protects the things that we hold valuable now, but also enhances opportunities for our children and grandchildren so that they will want to live here too. I also am running because you deserve a government that is respectful, inclusive, that values your input and cares about the things that you care about. I have the training, the education, the experience, the temperament that will enable me to deliver the kind of city government that you deserve. Thank you.
No, I've got a lavalier mic on this, so I don't have to hold that. First of all, thank you, Ann, for having us here today, and thank you all for being here. My name is Gary Brewer. I had the honor, and you were able to elect me 1982 to 1993 as your city commissioner, and then as mayor in 1993. I served one term as mayor, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. One thing I learned during this time while I was on the commission that, this is a very, very special place to live. And every community, every institution is based upon a foundation of values that they have identified. And those values began at the very, very beginning with Chapman and Chase, who found this community and identified the lakes and had a vision of a New England community. People like William Comstock, who became the president of the Board of Trade. James Seymour Capon, who planted the first trees on Park Avenue as a public and community project organized by the Chamber of Commerce or the Board of Trade there. Lucy Cross, who had a vision of bringing a college to this community. Charles Morris, we can't forget, a benefactor of this community, the parks and all of the things that we cherish in this community. Places like this building, sites for places like this building, because he knew that people needed a place to congregate and to have conversations, and that's what that's all about. And I've also learned that everything that the City Commission does should be measured against those core values. And so it's just a very, very careful, balanced approach to everything we do. I've been a very collaborative leader, and I look forward to continuing in that. I have three areas that I think that we talk about growth and development. I think it has to be balanced. We can't go through these cycles where we stop everything for 5 or 6 years and then we go full throttle for another 5 or 6 years. We've got to settle that down and be a little bit steadier. So I look forward to having our conversation tonight. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, and thank you everyone for being here this evening. Since I announced my campaign, there's been two questions that I'm often asked. One is, when are the debates? And two is, why did you decide to run? Obviously, this answers one of the first questions, and I would like to say thank you to the Winter Park Voice, as well as the League of Women Voters, for hosting this great event, and we appreciate everything that y'all do within the community. Before answering the second question, though, I'd like to give you all a little background about myself. My father worked on the Navy base. I grew up in Altamont Springs. I went to Lehigh University, where I received my master's and bachelor's in civil engineering. I've been a civil engineer for the last 26 years, mostly here within the state of Florida. And during that time, I deal with planning and zoning and regulation issues on a daily basis, so it's certainly an area that I am familiar with. For the last 10 years, I've owned a private consulting firm that we do engineering and economic work. I spent 6 years on the Utility Advisory Board. I spent 4 years of those as the chair of the Utility Advisory Board. I am married. I've been married for 16 years. I have two early teenage daughters that have given me private debate lessons for the last couple of years that I'm going to use this evening. So. I have never run for office before. This is my first time. I would say I'm not an experienced politician. Everyone deals with politics all the time, but I look forward to being able to do a good job for you. I am running because I feel like I've been called to serve, that I've had a lot of people ask me to do so. I don't need to tell you what a great city this is. Being on the Utility Advisory Board, I had a lot of support from some great people to go ahead and get on this board. So, that's why because Winter Park is such a great city, that's why this election is so important. I am looking to be able to use my engineering background, look at the numbers, make good quality decisions to help maintain the quality of life that we have in the city so that our children can live here and enjoy it too. Thank you.
Okay, we have the opening statements. Now we're going to have questions, and everybody will answer the same question. But rather than go the way we did it, we'll start with you, Mr. Seidel, and we'll go that way. Okay, we're going to.
So I'm last then first.
Right.
Fair enough.
Right. We'll kind of move it around a little bit. So the first question has to do with visioning. Should citizen participation in the visioning process be limited to those who live, work, and operate businesses in Winter Park, or should the input of non-residents also be included, and why?
Well, the visioning process itself, I think it's a good idea. It's kind of what our company was set up to do, was to help develop plans for Florida to develop SMART. So as far as bringing outside input into it, you know, I can say that it's good outside input is not a bad thing. As a balanced person and as an engineer, I always try and do as much investigation as I can and get as much input as I can and ultimately make the right decision. I think the visioning process is something that, if I'm elected to the commission, that I'll be able to have more input on it and be more actively involved in it and help the process turn out to be a good one for the city of Winter Park.
Okay, Mr. Brewer.
Yes, we've had a number of visioning scenarios over the years. I think when I was mayor, we had one in 1994 called Winter Park in Perspective, and we met at the Langford Hotel, and the community came together, and it's all, again, focuses on those core values that this community has, and what we have to do is to kind of clarify those. I don't think we should shut anybody out from having the conversation, whether they're, you know, obviously we're going to listen to residents more than we would probably to someone that doesn't live in our community, but there are a lot of people who may work in this community that have great ideas, and I think we need to listen to them and share all. And when it all comes down to it, the city commission is going to make the decision on that visioning plan, and along with you as citizens. So I look forward to continuing that program as well. Let's just make sure we don't put those on the shelf like we've done with every other visioning plan over the years. As soon as that gets finished, it goes back into the planning department, and then a new commission comes on board, and they lose interest in that plan, and they start off on another tangent. So I hope that we can find some common ground and get moving.
Ms. McKinnon.
I think the visioning process is going to be really, really important, and I hope that you, who obviously have an interest in civic affairs, will be a part of that. I'm a retired judge, so I like to have all the facts. I don't object to people outside of the city giving their input. I would like as much intelligent, thoughtful participation as we can possibly get. I do think more weight ought to be attributed to those who live in the city and who pay taxes and raise families and are directly affected by the vision that we arrive at. So I would welcome the input of anyone who's got valuable information that could affect the process, but I would certainly give more weight to the residents and people who have businesses here. I agree with Gary that the problem we may have is that it's a complicated process. I mean, it's really, when you read the RFP for the people who are helping to design this, it's so complicated, but it's so important that we have got to make sure that this doesn't end up in a blue binder sitting behind someone's desk at City Hall. We've got to develop something that is a living document that guides us for the next 20, 30, 40 years. Thank you.
Absolutely, we should take comments from everybody. We never know where the great idea is going to come from. We can trust the people that we put in charge to run this process, to filter through it, to filter what's a good idea and not. I either moved or seconded the amendment, the motion to approve the visioning plan. So I'm proud that we're doing it. I will tell you though, I lost the vote to try to have the visioning process and plan inform the next round of the comprehensive plan. Because, to Gary's point, I didn't want to see it sitting on a shelf. That was a big concern of mine. We're going to go through this, we're going to spend money, and it's going to sit on a shelf. We had a motion to try to get it to inform the comprehensive plan, the next round of the comprehensive plan, and I lost that. But that's okay. We win votes, we lose votes, it's all right, we move on. But I do think it will impact the next, as we go forward. There's a lot of smart people on all of our boards. We have an incredible number of boards and an incredible number of people involved in the city. There are a number of people who work in the city who don't live in the city, who have a very large impact in the city. You can talk about some of the nonprofits, Rollins College, any of the businesses in the city. And they do have a desire to see Winter Park move forward and keep the character of Winter Park. So I'm very proud to say that I'll support everybody participating in it, and we'll filter through it.
Okay, the next question is going to be on development. Do you believe the city needs stricter land use rules or stricter adherence to the ones we have to limit the number of large-scale, high-density projects? And why don't we begin that with Mr. Brewer? No, we'll
Okay.
listen.
We have a comprehensive plan, and I think we need to make sure that we are in conformance with that, obviously. And I guess you have to decide, what is density? Is density the size of a structure, or the number of structures in an area, or is it the number of people who reside in the community? And I think a lot of people have both views on that issue. Change is inevitable. If we did not change, we'd still have pine trees growing on Park Avenue. I think the question is not should we grow or should we develop, but how should we develop? How do we grow? And that's the question that we all have to come together and find some common ground and some common interest. We have, every institution has people on one side that feel strongly one way and people on the other side that feel strongly the other way. And so I think we have to work together as a community and find issues that we can agree on. Compromise. The Bill of Rights wouldn't exist today if elected officials back in 1792 hadn't agreed to compromise with one another. And so that's where it's going to have to come. We have to stop driving each other into our corners. And all of our government is polarized from the Congress right down to the state legislature and now even to our city government. We've got to get people to come back around the table and start talking to one another again.
Okay, Ms. McKinnon, why don't you take this?
Well, I haven't made any secret of the fact that I have a lot of opinions on this subject, actually. I think we have good land use regulations, zoning, all of that in place now. We can attract good high-end development with the rules that we have in place. The best example of that right now is the Alfond. It's a terrific asset for our community. No accommodations had to be given to that developer to build that beautiful project, with the exception of the fact that they needed a few more parking places. I think it was 40-something, which they entered into an agreement with All Saints Church to work that out. So there are certainly instances where it makes perfect sense to give exceptions to the code or to the land use regs. What I'm not in favor of is making such exceptions for the developer so that you end up with pack 'em and stack 'em, the concrete canyon that I call it on Denning. I would never have approved that project like that. I think we need smart development on our corridors on Lee Road, Fairbanks. That's going to be difficult to do for a lot of reasons, but it's worth making the effort to do that. But I don't want to see development that does not comply with the rules that we have in place now. Thank you.
Every microphone works. Every municipal plan across the country has a section for variances. They're there because you can't get the code perfect every time. You never know what's going to come up. My opponent just mentioned the Alfond Inn, and she's right. It was a great example of the city working with the developer to try to figure out a parking solution. We actually ended up going outside of what was allowed, which was 300 feet. We went a little bit further and allowed them to take some offset parking into the SunTrust garage. They were allowed to go across the street, and they cut a deal with All Saints. But getting that extra parking down at the SunTrust garage completed that deal. We have to be able to work with developers and property owners. We also have property rights. When we talk about the apartment building on the corner of Canton and Denning, I understand people don't like it. I'm not sure I'm crazy about it either right now, at the look and feel of it. But I will tell you this. In 2006, they were given the rights to build that building. They were given the rights to build a 370,000 square foot building. They worked with the commission. We took 24,000 square feet out of that building. They were also allowed to build a 50,000 square foot building next door on the piece of property that's known as the Publix liquor site. They're not allowed to build that anymore. So this commission worked with that developer to take a total of 75,000 square feet of volume off of the entire site. You may not like it. I get it. I get it. I'm not going to argue that everybody's going to love it. But this commission worked with them to actually lower volume on that overall site by 74,000 square feet.
Mr. Sato.
Yeah, could I ask you to repeat the question, please?
It's been a while, I know.
I can only write so much down.
I know. Do you believe the city needs stricter land use rules or stricter adherence to the ones we have to limit the number of large-scale, high-density projects?
Okay, this is one of the areas that I look at from an engineering perspective is what we seem to have with these big developments coming in is an emotional debate. A lot of it is centered around traffic and the change to the quality of life of our city. And so when I look at these, larger high-density developments, that I think of, there's a way that can they be done without impacting the city, and how do we figure that out? One of the things that's happened is I've talked to engineers. We don't have a detailed traffic model of our city that includes all the traffic and all the cut-through streets. And this is work that can be done. I know it can be done. I've talked to several engineers about it. And so when in our planning process, where I would say our rules and codes are okay, but there's things that we can add to our toolbox to help us make better decisions to decide if a variance is okay. And so if we can get that toolbox up and running, we can be looking at these things, and instead of having an emotional debate about what the change is going to be, have a more logical civil debate so that we can all have our input, and then determine, is this the course of action that we want to go down, but we will know what the traffic impact is going to be. And I think the recent development on 1792 was an emotional issue for people as well, but there wasn't the traffic model to discuss and have a clean discussion on it and decide, is this really best for us? Thank you.
Well, I tell you what, Mr. Settle, since the next question is about traffic, we'll begin with you. As we begin the ultimate I-4 makeover, traffic will spill over into Winter Park arteries like 1792 and from there into neighborhoods. So what recommendations do you have to address Winter Park's unfavorable level of traffic congestion, especially on the north-south corridors?
Well, I'll ditto my previous answer about the traffic model, so I won't go through all that again. But the one thing, I did talk to the engineers at the DOT, and we have very smart people that work at the DOT, and they're already installing some real-time sensors so they can make real-time adjustments to the lights on 1792. But living here, we all know that I don't even show up on 1792 because I usually take the back streets. So to me, we need to now work with the DOT and look to see, can we get these smart signals put on our lights that come down our street? So, when we have, I tell people that our traffic signals work best during the summertime because a lightning bolt knocks them out and we get a police officer standing at the intersection and he sees every car and he tells them what to do. And so we need to get our signals functioning like that. We have smart people at the city. They can do these things. We need to give them the resources and the tools to do so. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Leary.
We need regional solutions. The traffic problem in Winter Park is not caused necessarily by the residents of Winter Park. I think we all know that. It's caused by the 300,000 new residents of Seminole and Orange County in the last 10 years. We need to work with regional partners. Last evening at the commission meeting, I brought up the opportunity to possibly work at some smart signaling technology. If any of you all have been through New York City, when you get on one of the avenues going up, going north or going south, you can follow those lights. You can get 30, 40 blocks before you catch a next red light. We can do similar smart technology like that in Winter Park, but we need to do it regionally. It's the same with quiet zones. We got quiet zones approved, but quiet zones would not be quiet zones in Winter Park if we didn't have Orlando and Maitland having quiet zones either. You hear the train horns from next door. So we need regional solutions to some of this. We also talk about traffic, and yet I think there's a lot of misunderstanding in the community. Sunrail is a great traffic abater. I mean, Sunrail is hopefully taking cars off our roads. The Lee Road extension, another great opportunity to clear congestion at one of our busiest intersections. It will get people in and out, north and south, in Winter Park a lot quicker. So there are solutions going on. We're also working with the developer of the Mount Vernon Inn and Lakeside right now to fix some signaling technologies. And again, we don't get everything right the first time, but we have an opportunity to work with developers to try to fix things as we move forward, and we're going to help clean up that intersection too.
Cynthia McKinnon.
I have to go back for just a moment to my opponent's description of the property or the project that I call the monstrosity on Denning. And he says we had to do it, we could get sued, we were forced to comply with whatever the developer wanted. But at the time that this project was being built, he said we should be celebrating. People all over the United States want a project like that. This is a tremendous project. I agree, it's tremendous, all right, but this argument that we have to do it, they're entitled to it, we could get sued, I've never heard that argument made. I've never read it in the minutes until now when we have an election coming up and everybody agrees it's a monstrosity. So I just don't buy that argument. As far as traffic is concerned, we have to face the fact that we are a small, beautiful, unique city in the midst of the #1 tourist destination in the world. For sure, we have outside pressures on us, but there are many things that we can do internally. We cannot let developers offset parking across the street so that patrons have to cross 1792 5 lanes to get to Trader Joe's. We can ensure that traffic studies are conducted before development begins. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Brewer.
Our traffic problem is obviously, as has been pointed out, is not the fact that we have 29,000 residents living in the city that are trying to traverse from Park Avenue to their home and so on. We have 350,000 people a day that drive through Winter Park. Currently, I serve as the chairman of the Civil Service Board that provides oversight to the police and the fire departments, and that's one of the issues that we're trying to deal with every day. We're down four police officers in the department. They were authorized in the budget, but they were not funded. And that's a difficult task to try to maintain the traffic control as well. Over the years, we've also tried other traffic control devices. I remember for many years we had complaints along Pennsylvania Avenue that that was a cut-through route. And so the residents pleaded with us to brick Pennsylvania Avenue. Many of you probably now regret that that's been done because we actually used 2 different sized bricks on that roadway, so that's really very bumpy. But it was very effective. It did slow traffic down, and people are avoiding that route now. And we have done other things along Fairbanks and Aloma in that area to help calm the traffic. But it's going to be a problem. When they start closing down I-4, where do you think the alternative route's going to be? It's going to be 1792.